The modern Library of Alexandria has got over 500,000 books, which is actually almost exactly the same number as they had in the ancient library. But what it's also got here is this mega computer, which every few days saves all the information on the World Wide Web. In the 21st century, we're just so used to that ease of access to information where everything is stored electronically. But in the ancient library, they often held the single existing copy of a book. So just imagine if that was lost, you'd lose those ideas forever.
And tragically, that's exactly what happened in Alexandria. Knowledge had made the city an intellectual powerhouse of antiquity. It had made thinkers like Hypatia powerful forces within the city. It was an environment where new thoughts could flourish and evolve, where anyone from anywhere could voice their ideas. So perhaps it was inevitable that at some point, some ideas would come into conflict. And for the ancient world, Alexandria, its libraries, and for Hypatia herself, the result would be catastrophic. By the end of the 4th century AD, Alexandria had been flourishing for nearly 700 years, producing extraordinary thinkers like the philosopher and mathematician Hypatia. It was an immensely powerful city, second only to Rome in might, yet its power wasn't built on military force, but on the strength of ideas and the ambition to house all the knowledge in the world. And that included beliefs from the latest school of thinking, the fledgling religion, Christianity.
Alexandria had always attracted in cutting-edge thought and men who were at the top of their game. So it should be no surprise that from the 1st century AD, the key leaders of a new religion should want to come here to play out their ideas.
Only a few years after Christ's ascension, the gospel writer Mark came to Alexandria to spread the news, bringing Christianity into Africa. As one of the most forward-thinking places on earth, with its tradition fusing Eastern and Western cultures, Alexandria was an ideal place for Christianity to gain a foothold. But reconciling a multi-faith environment with a religion whose followers believed exclusively in one God proved a testing challenge for the city. St. Mark himself died at the hands of pagans for preaching his faith. It was a foretaste of the violence to come. Yet, for centuries, Christians and pagans did manage to live alongside one another, happily. The very early Christians spent a great deal of time and energy trying to square pagan and Christian thought. For instance, one of the most prolific early church fathers who lived in Alexandria said that the works of Plato and Aristotle and the Stoics were science tinged with piety as long as they were righteous. Now, in a world like that, where Christianity is just another stream of thought, then Hypatia has a very secure place. But the problem came when the Christians wanted not just spiritual, but temporal power. And then all that tolerance and piety becomes muddied with power politicking. And unfortunately for Hypatia, she'd come into conflict with one of the greatest political operators of the day. Hypatia herself wasn't anti-Christianity. Many of her students were in fact Christian. But the problem came when a new bishop, Cyril, was ordained in the city. Cyril not only wanted spiritual authority, but power on earth, and he didn't want to share it with pagans. His arrival would change the face of Alexandria forever.
You walk into somewhere like the Caesarean, and you see what originally we built as an Egyptian and Greek temple, with all the heads removed from the statues. And the cult statue has gone, and in its place you have a huge cross looking down. And you see how people like Cyril could change a world. He is a man seeking power, and he wishes to gain control not just of the religious state, he wants to really run a theocracy, be in charge of everything. Hypatia is a wealthy, educated pagan. To him, that means witch. He puts around rumours about all of the objects she makes for astronomy, her instruments. Clearly they're used for divination. Therefore, finding out what will happen in the future. It is black magic, and as such, she has to die.
And in one contemporary account, we learn that it was Hypatia's work with the astrolabe in particular that sparked hatred against her. Spurred on by one of their leaders, the blood of the Christian mob was up. They started to seek Hypatia out through the city and found her driving through these streets on her way home. They dragged her out of her carriage and ripped off her clothes. For a highborn woman like her, this would have been a terrible public disgrace. But then things got even uglier. They pulled her into the Caesareum, which had been a temple and then recently converted to a church. And there, picking up anything they could find, we're told they were ostraka, which were probably broken pots or broken roof tiles. They started to flay her alive. She was dead. They pulled her body limb from limb, and then they took her dismembered body parts to the edge of the city, where they burnt them on a pyre. In effect, this was a witch's death. Hypatia's tragedy was the tragedy of Alexandria. The destruction of its spectacular monuments, the desecration of its extraordinary libraries, and with that, the heartbreaking demise of the wealth of knowledge which had made it great for over 700 years. There are a few lines, desperately sad, written by a pagan who was wandering through the streets of Alexandria, watching the world he knew crumble around him. Is it true that we Greeks are really dead and only seem alive? And in our fallen state, we imagine that a dream is life. Or are we truly alive, and is life itself dead? For some, Alexander's dream was becoming a living nightmare. After centuries of onslaught, only 1% of Alexandria's vast book collection has survived into the modern world. Rather bizarrely, one of the survivors of Alexandria's destruction has ended up here. It's that massive lump of red granite, the obelisk that we very affectionately now call Cleopatra's Needle. It was brought here from Egypt in 1878, but in its heyday, it stood just at the edge of the Caesareum, so it was only a stone's throw away from where Hypatia was killed. I think that in many ways, Hypatia was an incarnation of Alexander's dream. She was living proof that knowledge is power. She was immensely knowledgeable, and therefore the extraordinary city that she lived in allowed her a huge amount of influence. But the key word here is extraordinary, because Alexandria was a city less ordinary. Its ambition, that dream to acquire and to caretake all the knowledge of the world, was just too perfect to last. We should bear that in mind, because it is, of course, a very modern dream. I mean, after all, that is what the World Wide Web does. And so when we know that Alexandria failed, and as a result, a whole epoch failed, we should take a very careful note. For that reason, we mustn't bury the memory of Alexandria.
but celebrated.